Welcome to EPG Pathshala. Welcome to the module on community and citizenship as part of the course on community organization. I am PK Shah Jahan, Professor and Chairperson for the Center for Community Organization and Development Practice, School of Social Work, Tata Institute of Social Sciences. Today in this module, we are going to deal with conceptual clarity on ideas of citizenship, how ideas of citizenship are integral to understanding communities in a democratic kind of an context. The linkage between communities and the state is actually operationalized through the idea of citizenship. So this citizenship becomes extremely important aspect in understanding how the citizens, the people in communities are essentially linked to the state, and what are the spaces for people to negotiate their role in a democratic kind of a nation-state environment. The module will cover major concepts and debates on citizenship, the interrelationship between identity and citizenship. The idea of citizenship is how different sections of the people are experiencing the idea of citizenship. And in that process, are there any communities or groups which are excluded from experiencing the fuller potentials of citizenship? So the idea of this module is to try to understand critical analysis, to bring a critical analysis of the linkage between community, identity and the state through the medium of citizenship. When we talk about citizenship, what do we understand by citizenship? Essentially, we understand that citizenship is talking about the membership of an individual in a community to a polity, a territorially defined state-owned society. That's a kind of idea which we have about citizenship. So it also comes with a lot of other aspects, like the loyalty. You are expected to show your loyalty to the idea of the state. By being a citizen, you have also certain duties and rights. You are entitled to certain rights, not primarily in relation to another human being, but all of these things is defined in terms of the individual's relationship with the state. So in that process, when you are talking about citizenship, we are essentially talking about the state is seeing everybody as equal. So there is a sense of equality, sense of universality applicable to every citizen in the country. So those are integral ideas around which citizenship is lying. So all those rights and entitlements which you have as part of an citizenship, it is protected by the state, by the law, the institutions of governance, and the legal and other mechanisms of the state. So in that sense, are we trying to say that citizenship is universal and unifying everyone within a nation state? Conceptually, yes, but is it the reality? So the module will actually try to look at the reality of citizenship and citizenship rights in the context of individuals' rights and entitlements within a nation state, kind of a democratic state concept. When we talk about citizenship as rights and entitlements, it is beyond the rights and entitlements. It is beyond what the state is supposed to do to the society or the people. It is also a set of cultural and symbolic and economic practices. When I am saying cultural, when we say Indian citizen, you are also thinking about certain cultures, certain languages and things like that. So there is not just the idea of abstract relationship which individual is having with the state. It is also coming with a sense of cultural backgrounds, a sense of political orientations, and the social background from which you come in. So when you say you are an Indian in a context which is outside India, it essentially talks about a lot of cultural as well as political and social factors, which is a part and parcel of this idea of citizenship. So it defines an individual competency to be a member of that polity. The citizenship actually defines the membership of an individual to the polity called the state-owned kind of a society. Now, how do we ensure that these rights and entitlements as well as the duties are monitored and ensured that everybody have access and all these phases are available to everyone in the country? So I will try to look at from the diagram, which is from the matrix which is put up on the board. You could see that there are different elements of citizenship. You look at what are the elements. The elements are civil, elements are political, elements are social. There are three different elements which we could actually look at from trying to understand the concept of citizenship. Now, if you look at all these elements on three different dimensions, what are the broad premises in which these elements are analyzed? What are the content of or the right which is ensured through this idea of citizenship? And what institutions are there to back, to provide these citizenship rights to everyone? Let's take the example of civil rights. The civil rights, it is necessary for ensuring that individuals' freedom is respected within a state context. So the broad premise is that civil rights will protect the necessary freedom. And what are the contents of it? You have freedom of thought, you have freedom of faith, you can own a property, you can conclude valid contracts, you have right to justice, you have right to works. All these things becomes the content of the civil rights which we are talking about. If you have a grievance, where do you go? You go to the institution as the courts of justice. So these courts of justice will provide the institutional framework for ensuring that these rights are protected. Now come to the political rights. Political rights essentially means, the broad premise is that the right to participate in exercise of political power. How do this political power comes into operation? You can exercise your franchise to elect a representative, or you can yourself get elected as a representative for the people. So these are the basic rights you have. You can elect your own representative, or you can stand for your own self as an elected representative, a representative to be elected. And what are the institutions which ensure that these rights are protected? It is a parliament, it's the legislative councils of the state, or the local governments at the local level, at the municipal or the panchayat level. Coming to the social rights, we are talking about the economic and social welfare of the people. You have a right to live a life of civilized being. You have, you will get education. You have welfare services, health, all those kind of welfare services which are essential for people to exercise their own rights and entitlements, or even for that matter to live a life of dignity and justice. So there are institutions of educational institutions, social service departments, and various other state institutions which ensure that these rights are ensured and protected by the institutions of governance as well as other institutions of the state machinery. Now, what do we actually try to do with this concept of citizenship? The citizenship, by all those civil, political, and social dimensions which we are talking about, we were talking about the fact that there is a need for marking a member of one polity to another. Say, for example, you are a member of Indian, you are an Indian citizen, or somebody else is a citizen of another country. You're trying to differentiate between a person who is a legitimate Indian citizen and non-member, and the other a member of another country. Also, you can differentiate between members and non-members. There are members as well as non-members. There could be aliens as well. In any country, there are situations where people belonging to people do not have undocumented residence, so to say, which we talk about in international context and all. So there are members and non-members. There are members of one polity and members of another polity. So citizenship actually mark out between these two kind of distinctions one is trying to make. So essentially, we believe that idea of citizenship is trying to tame the divisive tendencies which we discussed in our earlier module on identity, which is probably creating different kind of troubles and tensions within the society. So citizenship idea should probably ideally tame the divisive tendencies of the ideas created by the sense of identities. Now, in order to expand this idea to further, I would like to take some theoretical conceptions by John Rawls when he talks about idea of justice. In the context of discussion on citizenship, we could take two moral powers which is defined in the idea of justice by John Rawls. He talks about there is a sense of justice and a conception of good. What is a sense of justice? So the society society, the social functioning as well as the state functioning should ensure that the people, the citizen, have a sense of justice. And that sense of justice should go along with the conception of good. So you have a larger good, but at the same time, in the larger good, you cannot violate the rights and justice of individuals as well. So it's a combination of a well-ordered society will have a combination not only of the good for the entire society, but at the same time, individuals' justice are respected and protected. So, in order to expand this idea, Rawls talks about the fair division of cake. What is a fair division of cake? Fair division of cake means that you need to prioritize justice over efficiency and welfare. If you have a piece of cake and needs to be distributed among 10 people, you can divide it into 10 equal pieces. But that's not justice. If somebody needs more because of the kind of pre-existing conditions, we need to the sense of justice talks about having priority over justice over efficiency and welfare. We are not talking about efficiency and welfare, but we are talking about justice. So this is the idea of distributive justice. We are talking about just outcomes and consequences, not just equality when we are talking about. So the equality which I was talking about in the conception of citizenship is to be overridden by the idea of justice. So justice, just outcome and just consequences should be the idea around which one is talking about citizenship. Then second is, once justice provided doesn't mean that a person live in justice all through. So you need to ensure that there is a stability of justice. A poor may be given a kind of a scheme, benefit of a scheme to ensure that his incomes are enhanced. But at the same time, the person will not have a stability of justice if that ends there. There has to be a mechanism for that person to deal with the issues of marginality which the person in poverty is experiencing. The second aspect is the sense of justice. Sense of justice is that it's not only provision of justice, but also person should feel that a sense of justice. I'll give you an example of violations of rights of Dalits. If Dalits atrocities are committed and the person who commits the crime is roaming around, there is no sense of justice. Sense of justice is also a feeling that the state does ensure that the person feels a sense of justice. So in this entire process, we make rational choices where equality of opportunity is essential, but at the same time, we need to ensure that the equality doesn't override just sense of justice. So this is the idea of justice which we are talking about in the context of citizenship. Now, I'm trying to connect the idea of citizenship now to the identity which we discussed in the previous module. What does identity do? The identity is basically based on primordial loyalties. It could be seen, as we have discussed in the earlier section, it could be seen as divisive. Identity is, in a way, is divisive. And it is also leading to conflicts. But can we then say that identity is exactly opposite to the ideas of citizenship? Or citizenship is universal and identity is particular? Or citizenship has the potential to moderate the divisiveness of identities of gender, religion, caste and class? I think it has the potential to moderate. But how do we promote in a situation where the society is divided into various identity groups, can we promote citizenship, which is an equalizing and equalizing and universal kind of an idea, when there are divisions within the society on the basis of gender, religion, caste, and class, and several other factors of divisive ideas. So, how do we ensure that citizenship can be promoted by keeping in mind that the society is divided on the basis of these identities? Before getting into the problematics of this idea, how do we promote? Let me take the example of Indian Constitution and how Indian Constitution considers citizenship. Now, there are different ways in which you are expected to get Indian citizenship. It could be by birth, it could be by descent, it could be by registration, it could be by naturalization, or incorporation of a territory become part of your country, or under, in specifically in Indian context, under Assam Accord, people who have migrated from other parts of the region, moved to the country before 25 March 1971, they are given citizenship rights. So there are different ways in which citizenship is ensured for the people of this country. Now, I'm coming back to the idea of divisiveness and things like that. Despite, we understand that despite the universal, so to say, rhetoric of citizenship, which is supposed to be a kind of a universal and equalizing kind of a concept, it has never been expanded to all members of the polity. It is a reality that several communities, such as nomadic communities, who are not able to get their education, when we are talking about the social dimensions of citizenship, nomadic communities are not able to get education. I talked about Katkari communities in my previous module. These communities move from one place to another, and they are not able to get their education properly because their entire family moves. So they are not getting the rights as supposed to be everybody is getting. The diasporic communities are also probably not getting. They are Indian citizens but living elsewhere. Their entire life is completely in another context. They cannot be considered as getting all citizenship rights. Of course, there are several initiations happen in terms of overseas citizens of India and all those kind of regulatory mechanisms which have been made by the state to ensure that they also get equal kind of considerations. Different communities like Chakmas and Hajons in Arunachal Pradesh who have moved from Chittagong hill tracts, there are still a lot of people who have not been able to get the citizenship despite Supreme Court directions in this matter. So what I'm trying to say is that many are excluded from the status and scope of citizenship, be it Dalits, the violations of rights happening in the case of Dalits throughout the country, all through the history of this country. The minorities, both religious as well as sexual minorities, facing different kind of discriminations. All these things are giving a sense that what we talk about as universal idea of citizenship is not actually getting translated into everyday experience of people of different marginalized communities. Now, these marginalized communities, what are the provisions which we have made in the Constitution of India? You have rights of SC, ST and communities under the Article 16 is protected. You have the rights of OBC communities. As we have made reservations and several other provisions for ensuring that OBC communities and the backward communities are getting necessary support. Minorities are also provided. Religious minorities are, as per the personal laws, they can propagate, they can believe, they can practice their own religion. Article 14 to 24 in the Constitution talks about individual rights to equality and freedom. Article 25 to 30 talks about religious freedom and cultural and educational rights of minorities. So all these things are in a way specific provisions, not looking at having an equal kind of a citizenship, but at the same time considering the original position of people with marginalities, their situations are considered so that they can come up to claim their rights in their legitimate ways. So what is essentially a difficult situation in the context of varied kind of dimensions of diversities which exist in the country, the challenges of caste, religion, the patriarchal notions limit the operationalizing of equal citizenship. When women are not getting certain kinds of jobs or certain kind of respect within the society, it is because of the patriarchal notions. It has nothing to do with probably with the state, but it is the patriarchal notions of the society which makes women probably not getting equal status. The caste, which is again a social reality, which is again creating a lot of troubles. The religious differences and fights between religious communities, these are all societal factors which creates impediments for ensuring that everybody in the society get equal citizenship. The state is supposed to be equal and to everyone. Now, when we are looking at these different kind of ideas of experiences of people because of various marginalities which I've talked about, how do we deal with this in our constitution? There are different treatment for equal rights. When we are talking that everybody should get equal rights, but also there are differential treatment. Is it against citizenship right? It is not, because we are considering that there are inherent marginalities which exist. The specialized provisions which I mentioned about for SC/ST communities and all those kind of different sections which talks about considering that there exists a marginality. So those provisions are in a way differential treatment to ensure that equality is assured or equal rights are protected. When we look at these differential ideas, differential status and differential treatments which are essentially necessary for ensuring that everybody gets equal rights or the state doesn't discriminate against anyone. So the reservation which we have in the country is an essential feature of the constitution which talks about that there are social, economic, educational backwardness of certain sections of the society that needs to be taken into consideration when we talk about representation, educational, access to education, jobs and everything. So that's the reason why we are talking about reservations and affirmative actions. Now, within the context of the state mechanisms and within the context of the citizenship ideas, what are those negotiation spaces which are available for ensuring this possibility of considering marginalities? I will go by the three different dimensions or elements of citizenship rights: the civil, the political and the social domain. In the civil domain, you could see that the personal laws, we have a whole set of personal law. There are a lot of discussions about uniform civil code and things like that, but at the same time the idea behind the personal law initially was that each community has their own sets of practices and it needs to be protected. So you have the personal laws protected. You have institutions to protect and promote religious and cultural aspects. There are several, even temple trust and several other institutions which are being run, the Hajj committee. So there are several kind of institutions which protect religious interests, but it is state mediated. So you are creating certain kind of mechanisms so that the citizenship rights are not an exclusive, uniform, unitary idea, but taking into consideration the diverse ideas. There are a whole lot of legal support mechanisms which are there. There is SC/ST commission, there is all kind of legal support mechanisms to protect the civil domain of the rights which we are talking about. Moving on to the political domain, we have the reservation and representation for reservations for election to the various positions. Of course, it is not at the higher levels, but at the same time, you have political representation and reservation in the panchayats, which is made legal. You have reservation for women. You have political parties are also formed. There is nothing which is stopping even political parties to form on the basis of religious or other identities. There are parties which are having religious or caste or other ideas, and this is not anything against the constitutional provisions. And when you come to the social domain, you have various welfare measures, preferences. You have certain preferences given to certain sections of the society and all those kind of ideas which is there in the social domain. There are corporations, SCST Welfare Corporation, there are commissions, and all those kind of institutions are also put into place to ensure that these differences in experience of people or pre-existing conditions are taken care of in operationalizing the idea of citizenship. In conclusion, I would say that when we discuss about citizenship as a unitary, uniform, universal idea, it is not just a relationship between the state and the people alone. It is also, we discussed that it is also a set of cultural, symbolic and economic dimensions of citizenship. By the very fact that you are a citizen of a particular country, you tend to associate a lot of cultural, symbolic and economic ideas behind it. That's also part of the citizenship ideas. It is also a bundle of rights and duties. There are civil, political and social dimensions of rights and duties. Quite often we talk about rights, but we don't quite talk about the duties as well. You have certain duties as a citizen as well. Citizenship in one way is, in a way, we say that we are Indians first and then probably Hindus, Muslims, Christians second. The idea is that citizenship has the potential to tame the divisive passion of other identities. You can consider citizenship as the uniform kind of an identity which you may have, but that has the potential for taming the divisive passions. But at the same time, the taming of divisive passions of different identities cannot be imposed idea that national identity is the only identity. At the same time, you are also considering that individual identities are important, but at the larger level, we consider that we are citizens as a singular identity which we may have. While we consider that citizenship in a state context, several communities are excluded because of various historical and other social and economic conditions. Those excluded communities need to be incorporated in the idea of citizenship. You cannot say that everybody is equal. Everybody is not equal. So you need to consider that everybody is, there exists an inequality in the society. So people who are remained outside the status and scope of enjoying the rights and entitlements needs to be included as part of this citizenship idea itself. The parliament or the highest elected body has the power to enact laws relating to citizenship in order to bring more and more inclusive ideas into the idea of citizenship. So the idea is that this module will give you a sense that citizenship and identities are not essentially two disconnected ideas. We need to bring these two ideas together, not as extremely opposite or diverse kind of ideas, but somewhere we can actually bring these two ideas together to ensure that the people get necessary support for ensuring that their rights and entitlements are protected, irrespective of the diversity they live in. So this, I hope this session gave you necessary insights. For further details, you may refer to the text provided as well as a list of references provided in the module. And thank you very much.